2 officers had done this before. Stop a black woman in a quiet neighborhood. Assert control. Escalate fast. No accountability. No risk. Just another face they thought they could intimidate. She looked ordinary, harmless, easy, but when they drew their guns, she moved like no civilian should. And she fought back. In seconds, everything changed. What they didn't know was that she wasn't just anyone. She was Delta Force. They thought she'd break. They thought she'd bleed. They thought she'd be easy. They were dead wrong. And now, the truth is coming for all of them. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Sarah's weathered hands moved through the rich soil, feeling each granule between her fingers. The late afternoon sun warmed her back as she worked in her modest backyard garden. The familiar scent of earth and growing things bringing a peace she'd fought hard to find. Her small plot of land, tucked behind a simple 2-story house in a quiet black neighborhood, had become her sanctuary. She carefully placed another tomato seedling into the ground, remembering how her grandmother had taught her the proper depth for planting. "Not too deep now, baby," she could still hear the old woman saying. "Plants are like people. They need just the right foundation to grow strong." The memory brought a slight smile to her face as she patted the soil around the delicate stem. Her garden wasn't much, just a few raised beds with vegetables and herbs, and some flowering plants that attracted butterflies. But it was hers. Every plant represented another day of choosing peace over violence, of trading weapons for garden tools. Mrs. Johnson, her elderly neighbor, called over the fence. "Those tomatoes coming along, Sarah?" "Yes, ma'am," Sarah replied, straightening up and wiping her brow with the back of her hand. "Should have a good crop this summer. I'll make sure to bring you some when they're ready." "You're too kind, child." Mrs. Johnson paused, then added, "It does my heart good to see you out here every day. Reminds me of how this neighborhood used to be. Everyone with their victory gardens, sharing what they grew." Sarah nodded, understanding the deeper meaning in the old woman's words. Their neighborhood had changed over the years, but it still held on to its sense of community. People looked out for each other here, something Sarah had come to value more than she ever expected. She turned back to her work, moving on to check the cucumber vines climbing their trellises. Her hands, once trained to handle weapons with deadly precision, now carefully adjusted the tender stems, guiding them toward the support they needed. The irony wasn't lost on her. How these same hands that had taken lives in far-off places now nurtured life in this small patch of earth. A gentle breeze rustled through the leaves of the old oak tree that shaded part of her yard. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, letting the sound wash over her. It was nothing like the whip of helicopter blades or the whistle of incoming fire, sounds that still sometimes invaded her dreams. Here, there were only bird songs, distant lawn mowers, and children playing somewhere down the street. She reached for her water bottle, taking a long drink as she surveyed her work. The neat rows of plants, the carefully maintained paths between beds, the methodical organization, some habits from her military days remained useful in civilian life. Order and discipline, but now in service of growth rather than destruction. The calendar alert on her phone buzzed against her hip. Sarah pulled it out, noting the time, 2:30 p.m. The reminder to pick up Maya from school flashed on the screen. She began gathering her tools, placing them carefully in their designated spots in the old toolbox her sister had given her years ago, before the cancer took her. Sarah's movements were precise and efficient as she cleaned up, muscle memory from years of military discipline showing in every motion. She removed her gardening gloves, brushing off the excess soil before hanging them on their hook in the small shed. The routine was comforting, a daily ritual that helped ground her in the present. Inside the house, she washed her hands thoroughly in the kitchen sink, watching the water run clear as she scrubbed away the dirt from beneath her fingernails. The house was quiet, except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the old clock on the wall. A peace she'd learned to appreciate after years of chaos. Sarah caught her reflection in the window above the sink. The years had left their marks, gray threading through her dark hair, lines around her eyes that spoke of both laughter and pain. But her posture remained straight, her movements controlled, a lifetime of training impossible to fully shed. She grabbed her keys from the hook by the door, the old truck's key hanging alongside the house key and the small garden shed key. Each one represented a piece of her new life: home, transportation, purpose. Simple things that had seemed impossible during her years of service. The screen door creaked slightly as she stepped onto the front porch. Sarah made a mental note to oil the hinges later. Her old pickup truck sat in the driveway, its faded blue paint honest about its age but still reliable, like its owner. She'd chosen it specifically because it was ordinary, forgettable, a far cry from the tactical vehicles of her past. She walked down the porch steps, keys jingling softly in her hand. The neighborhood was quiet at this hour, most people still at work or school. A few houses down, Mr. Washington was watering his lawn, and he raised a hand in greeting. Sarah returned the wave, appreciating the simple normalcy of the moment. The truck's door opened with a familiar groan as Sarah climbed in, settling into the worn seat. She'd need to pick up Maya from the high school. Then maybe they'd stop at the grocery store on the way home. Normal plans for a normal day. She turned the key in the ignition, the engine rumbling to life with its characteristic throaty purr. Sarah pulled up to the high school just as students began streaming out of the building. She spotted Maya immediately, her niece's bright yellow backpack standing out in the crowd. The girl's face lit up when she saw the familiar blue truck, and she jogged over, her braids bouncing with each step. "Hey, Auntie," Maya said, climbing into the passenger seat. She tossed her backpack in the back and buckled up. "You smell like dirt again." "That's the smell of honest work," Sarah replied with a small smile. "Unlike that chemistry test you were supposed to have today." "How'd that go?" Maya groaned dramatically, slumping in her seat. "Can we talk about something else? Like dinner, maybe?" "That bad, huh?" Sarah pulled away from the curb, navigating through the after-school traffic. "And here I was thinking about making your favorite tonight, my spicy chicken stir-fry." "Really?" Maya perked up instantly. "With the snap peas from your garden?" "Mm-hmm. But maybe I should reconsider, given that chemistry test." "No fair! I studied really hard, I swear. Mr. Peterson just makes everything so complicated." Maya pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages. "Besides, I got an A on my history paper last week. That should count for something, right?" Sarah chuckled, making the turn onto Maple Street. "We'll see. How about we stop at the store and pick up some—" "Auntie." Maya's voice suddenly changed, tension creeping in. "There's a police car behind us." Sarah checked her rearview mirror. A tactical unit cruiser had appeared, following closely. Too closely. She maintained her speed exactly at the limit, hands at 10 and 2 on the wheel. "It's fine. Just stay calm." The cruiser's lights flashed on. Sarah signaled and pulled over smoothly, stopping in front of the old Thompson house just 2 blocks from home. She turned off the engine and placed both hands back on the wheel, visible. 2 officers approached, one on each side of the truck. The one on the driver's side, older, white, with hard eyes and a swagger in his step, tapped on her window with his flashlight. Sarah pressed the button to lower it. "License and registration," he demanded without preamble, his tone sharp and hostile. "May I ask why I was stopped, officer?" Sarah kept her voice steady, neutral. "I said license and registration." He leaned in closer, his badge reading Harley. The younger officer on the passenger side, Rourke, stood silently, watching. Sarah reached slowly for her glove compartment. "I'm going to get my registration now, officer." "You people always got something to say, don't you?" Harley's hand rested on his weapon. "Can't just follow simple instructions." Maya's phone appeared in her lap, recording discreetly. Sarah saw it, but didn't react. "My license is in my back pocket. I'm going to reach for it now." "Step out of the vehicle." Harley's command came suddenly, aggressive. "I don't understand." "What's the reason for—" "I said get out of the car." Harley grabbed the door handle, yanking it open. "You want to do this the hard way?" Sarah remained calm, though her heart raced. "Officer, I have the right to know why I'm being stopped." "Rights?" Harley sneered. "You're being detained for suspicious behavior and possible drug trafficking. Out, now." "Drug trafficking?" Maya spoke up, her voice shaking but defiant. "We're 2 blocks from our house. You've been following us for like 30 seconds. "Maya, quiet," Sarah warned softly. To Harley, she said, "Sir, this is harassment. I'd like to speak to your supervisor." Harley's face darkened. He reached in suddenly, grabbing Sarah's arm. "Playing lawyer now? Get your ass out of this vehicle before I drag you out." "Take your hands off me," Sarah said, her voice low but firm. "This is an illegal stop and you know it." "That's it!" Harley yanked harder, his other hand going to his weapon. "Rourke, get the girl." The younger officer hesitated for a split second before moving toward Maya's door. Maya held her phone higher now, openly filming. "Don't you touch her," Sarah warned, still maintaining her composure even as Harley tried to pull her from the truck. "Put that phone down," Harley shouted at Maya. "That's evidence tampering." "This is assault," Maya shot back, her voice trembling but determined. "We have rights." Harley's face contorted with rage. He released Sarah's arm, only to draw his weapon in one fluid motion. "She's reaching!" he suddenly yelled, though Sarah hadn't moved. "Gun! Gun!" The sound of his pistol firing shattered the afternoon quiet. Time slowed to a crawl as Harley's fingers squeezed the trigger. Sarah's body moved before her mind could process, years of training taking over like muscle memory. She twisted away from the bullet's path, her left hand grabbing Harley's wrist while her right struck his elbow. The gun clattered to the pavement. Harley's eyes widened in shock as Sarah flowed from the truck like water, using his own momentum to flip him onto his back. The impact knocked the wind from his lungs with a heavy whoosh. His gun was in Sarah's hands before he could even gasp for air. "Maya, down!" Sarah commanded, her voice sharp and clear. Maya ducked just as another officer rounded the truck's hood, weapon drawn. Sarah fired 2 precise shots, one into each officer's thigh, carefully placed to disable but not kill. They crumpled to the ground, clutching their legs and howling in pain. Officer Rourke stood frozen, his hand hovering over his holster, but not drawing. "Don't!" Sarah warned him, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Rourke's hand dropped to his side. The entire exchange had taken less than 5 seconds. "Maya, come to me. Stay low." Sarah maintained her aim on the downed officers, while Maya scrambled out of the passenger side. "Behind me now." Maya pressed against her aunt's back, trembling but still gripping her phone. "Oh my God, oh my God," she whispered. Sarah began backing them away from the scene, moving with practiced efficiency. Her eyes never stopped scanning. Rooftops, windows, possible cover points. She looked nothing like the quiet gardener now. Every movement was precise, economical, lethal. "What? What are you?" Rourke stammered, staring at her with a mixture of fear and awe. Sarah didn't answer. She guided Maya behind a parked car, still covering their retreat. Neighbors were beginning to peer out of windows and doorways, drawn by the gunshots. "Inside!" Sarah called out to them. "Everyone inside, now!" The streets emptied immediately. Harley pushed himself to his knees, blood trickling from where his head had hit the pavement. "Officer down!" he screamed into his radio, voice raw with rage and humiliation. "Shots fired! Suspect is armed and dangerous." Sarah heard sirens in the distance. They had maybe 2 minutes before backup arrived. She spotted Mrs. Johnson's gate slightly ajar, 3 houses down. The old woman always left it unlocked for her afternoon walks. "Maya, when I say run, you go straight through Mrs. Johnson's yard and take the back alley. Don't stop until you reach Reverend Wicks's house. Understand?" Maya nodded, her whole body shaking but her jaw set with determination. "You're not getting away with this," Harley snarled, trying to stand but wobbling unsteadily. "You're dead. You hear me? Dead." "Officer Rourke," Sarah called out, ignoring Harley completely. "You saw what really happened here. Remember that." Rourke swallowed hard, looking between Sarah and his raging superior officer. Something shifted in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, of the choice now laid before him. "Run," Sarah whispered to Maya. They sprinted in perfect sync, Sarah keeping her body between Maya and the officers until they reached the gate. They slipped through just as the first backup units screamed around the corner. Harley grabbed his radio again, face purple with fury. "All units! Armed suspect fleeing on foot. Black female, mid-50s, military training. She ambushed us during a routine stop. Attempted murder of police officers. Shoot on sight. I repeat, shoot on sight." Officer Rourke watched his superior continue shouting into the radio, embellishing the story with each passing second. The truth of what he'd witnessed burned in his mind. An innocent woman defending herself and her niece from an unprovoked attack. But Harley was already crafting the official narrative, and Rourke knew speaking up now would mean the end of his career, or worse. "She had a weapon stashed!" Harley was yelling now, pacing despite his dizziness. "Planned the whole thing! Tried to execute me point blank." His hands shook as he touched the back of his head, fingers coming away, bloody. The injury seemed to fuel his rage even further. More units arrived, officers spilling out with rifles and tactical gear. Harley pointed them toward different search routes, his voice getting louder and more frenzied with each order. "Find her. I want every street, every alley, every goddamn doghouse checked. That terrorist doesn't leave this neighborhood alive!" Rourke stood rooted to the spot, still staring at the empty gateway where Sarah and Maya had disappeared. He'd never seen anyone move like that, with such precise, controlled violence, like a force of nature contained in human form. The memory of her eyes in that moment haunted him. Clear, focused, utterly without fear. He looked down at the 2 wounded officers being loaded into ambulances, their injuries painful, but expertly placed to avoid any major arteries. She could have killed them all easily. Instead, she'd shown restraint, even while defending herself. "Rourke!" Harley's shout snapped him back to attention. "Stop standing there like an idiot! You're with me. We're going hunting." As Harley stormed off to coordinate the search, Rourke touched the body camera on his chest, wondering if it had captured the truth, and what that truth might cost him. Sarah and Maya huddled in the dim light of Reverend Wicks's church basement. The old stone walls muffled the sound of sirens wailing through the neighborhood streets above. Maya sat on a worn couch, still shaking, while Sarah stood at the tiny window checking for movement. Reverend Wicks descended the wooden stairs with 3 steaming cups of tea. "Police are going door to door," he reported quietly. "But they won't come here without a warrant. Church sanctuary still means something in this community." "Thank you, Reverend," Sarah said, accepting a cup but not drinking. Her posture remained rigid, alert. Maya wrapped her hands around the warm mug, staring at her aunt. The quiet gardener who grew tomatoes and read mystery novels had transformed into someone else entirely, someone dangerous and skilled. The image of Sarah disarming Officer Harley played over and over in her mind. "Who are you?" Maya finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Really?" Sarah turned from the window, shoulders heavy with the weight of secrets long buried. She met Maya's eyes, seeing fear mixed with confusion and awe. "I'm still your aunt," Sarah said softly. "That hasn't changed." "But what I saw?" Maya set down her tea. "That wasn't just self-defense. That was military, special forces or something." Reverend Wicks settled into an old armchair, his presence steady and calming. "Perhaps it's time for truth, Sarah." "The girl's seen too much to keep hiding." Sarah sighed deeply, then pulled up a wooden chair across from Maya. "I served 20 years in the Army, but not in any unit you'd find in regular records." "Delta Force," Maya said, making Sarah's eyebrows rise slightly. "I'm not stupid, Aunt Sarah. The way you moved, how you shot those officers to wound but not kill, that's elite training." A ghost of a smile crossed Sarah's face. "You always were too smart for your own good." Maya pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. "And I've been doing some digging while we've been down here. There's not much about you in regular military databases, but—" She turned the phone to show Sarah. "I found some encrypted files. Had to use a few tricks to crack them." Sarah's face darkened as she saw the heavily redacted document. One word stood out clearly. "Reaper." "Your call sign?" Maya asked. Sarah nodded slowly. "I led a special operations unit. Counterterrorism, hostage rescue, classified missions in places that officially didn't exist." She rubbed her hands together, as if trying to wash away old stains. "I thought I'd left that life behind." "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "To protect you. The things I did. The things I saw." Sarah's voice caught. "When your mother died, I promised to give you a normal life. No violence, no looking over your shoulder." Maya scrolled through more documents on her phone. "These mission reports, most are blacked out, but the dates, the locations—" Her eyes widened. "You were there during the embassy crisis in Sudan, and the terrorist cell takedown in Yemen." "Maya," Sarah warned, "some things are better left buried." "But you're a hero," Maya protested. "You saved people." Sarah's face hardened. "I was a weapon, pointed at whatever target they chose. Sometimes the lines between right and wrong got very blurry." She leaned forward, taking Maya's hands. "That's why I chose peace. Why I started growing things instead of destroying them." Reverend Wicks cleared his throat. "The Lord works in mysterious ways, Sarah. Perhaps your skills were preserved for just such a moment as this." "I won't go back to being that person," Sarah said firmly. "Those officers tried to kill you," Maya reminded her. "We have it on video. They're still out there, hunting you, lying about what happened." Sarah stood and paced the small room. "I know, but violence only leads to more violence. There has to be another way." "There is," Maya said, holding up her phone again. "The truth. My video, these files, we can prove who you really are. Show everyone that Harley attacked you without cause. And paint an even bigger target on our backs." Sarah shook her head. "The system protects its own. They'll bury the truth deeper than any of my classified missions." Maya stood and faced her aunt. "Then we'll dig it up. Together. You taught me to stand up to bullies, remember? To fight for what's right?" Sarah stared at her niece. No longer the little girl she'd promised to shelter, but a young woman ready to face hard truths. Her heart swelled with pride even as fear gripped it. "Come here," Sarah whispered, pulling Maya into a tight embrace. They held each other, the weight of revelations and danger pressing in around them. Reverend Wicks watched the pair with knowing eyes. "Truth is a powerful weapon, sisters. Perhaps the most powerful of all." Sarah stroked Maya's hair, feeling the tremors still running through her niece's body. Everything she'd tried to prevent had come crashing down anyway. Her past was exposed, her peaceful life shattered, and Maya was now entangled in a dangerous web of corruption and violence. But as she held her niece, Sarah felt something else stirring beneath her fear. A familiar readiness, a clarity of purpose she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Maya was right. Sometimes fighting back meant standing in the light, not hiding in shadows. Officer Brett Harley sat at his desk in the precinct's tactical unit office, his leg bandaged where Sarah had shot him. His fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency as he edited the body camera footage from the traffic stop. "Just a few adjustments," he muttered, carefully trimming frames and rearranging sequences. On his screen, the confrontation played out differently. Sarah appearing more aggressive, his own actions more measured and professional. Officer Kevin Rourke stood behind him, watching silently as Harley manipulated the truth. The younger officer's stomach churned as he saw how easily digital evidence could be twisted. "There," Harley said, leaning back with satisfaction. "Now it shows what really happened." Rourke frowned. "Sir, that's not exactly—" "That's exactly what happened, rookie." Harley cut him off sharply. "She was combative from the start, refused lawful commands, then reached for a weapon." "I didn't see a weapon," Rourke said quietly. Harley swiveled in his chair, fixing Rourke with a hard stare. "Listen carefully. You're new, so I'll explain how this works. Sometimes the camera doesn't catch everything. Sometimes we have to help the footage tell the right story. The story that protects our brothers and sisters in blue. You understand?" Rourke swallowed hard and nodded, though his conscience screamed otherwise. He watched as Harley exported the edited video and sent it to the department's public affairs office. Within hours, the footage was playing on every local news channel. The headlines scrolled across TV screens throughout the city. Former military officer attacks police during routine stop. Manhunt underway for armed and dangerous fugitive. Sources claim suspect has ties to extremist groups. In the break room, Rourke watched the coverage with growing unease. The edited footage showed Sarah lunging at Harley unprovoked, the camera conveniently shaking at crucial moments. There was no sign of Maya's presence or her phone recording. Nothing about Harley's aggressive approach or unnecessary escalation. Captain Morris entered, his face grim. "The FBI's counterterrorism unit is taking an interest. They're sending a team to assist in the manhunt." Harley, who had followed the captain in, smiled tightly. "Good. This woman's clearly a threat to public safety. Military training, anti-police ideology, classic domestic terrorist profile." Rourke noticed something in Harley's tone, not just satisfaction, but eagerness, as if this was exactly what he'd wanted. The young officer retreated to his desk, pulling up the original incident report. Small details nagged at him, the timestamp gaps in the body cam footage, the missing dash cam video from his own patrol car, the fact that Sarah had shot to wound rather than kill. None of it matched the narrative being pushed. His computer pinged with a new email, an intelligence bulletin showing Sarah's military service record. Most of it was heavily redacted, but what remained painted a picture of an exemplary soldier with multiple commendations, not the profile of someone who would attack officers without cause. Across the precinct, phones rang constantly as tips poured in. SWAT teams geared up for raids. K-9 units patrolled the streets of Sarah's neighborhood. The machinery of law enforcement was spinning up to full power, all focused on one target. At his desk, Harley made call after call, coordinating with federal agencies and media contacts. His leg wound seemed forgotten in his zealous pursuit. Rourke overheard fragments of conversations that made little sense, references to property developers, clearance operations, and cleaning up the neighborhood. As evening fell, Unmarked vehicles began arriving at the precinct. Men in tactical gear but no identifying insignia moved through the building with quiet purpose. Rourke watched them disappear into closed-door meetings with Harley and senior officers. In the church basement, Reverend Wicks descended the stairs with urgent news for Sarah and Maya. His usually calm face was etched with worry. "They're mobilizing everything," he reported. "Not just local police, federal agents, tactical teams, surveillance units. Word from my contacts is they're treating this like a major counter-terrorism operation." Sarah stood by the small window, her posture tense. "They're not just coming for me. They're using this as an excuse for something bigger." "My sources say the same," Wicks agreed. "This goes beyond a traffic stop gone wrong. They're coming for you, Sarah. Big time. And they're bringing enough firepower to take down a small army." Maya clutched her phone, the unedited video of the traffic stop safely encrypted inside. "They're trying to bury the truth under a mountain of lies." "No," Sarah corrected grimly. "They're trying to bury me." Through the basement window, they could see more unmarked vehicles rolling slowly through the darkening streets. The hunt was intensifying. The machine was in motion. And Sarah Vance, gardener, aunt, and former Delta Force operator, had become the target of forces far beyond a corrupt local cop with a grudge. The pre-dawn darkness cloaked Sarah's neighborhood in shadows. She sat alert in her living room, fully dressed, watching through a gap in the curtains. Maya dozed fitfully on the couch nearby, their emergency bags packed and ready. Sarah's trained ears caught it first. The subtle whisper of tactical vehicles rolling in with lights off. The soft crunch of boots on grass. The metallic clicks of weapons being readied. "Maya," she whispered, gently shaking her niece. "Time to move." The teenager was instantly awake, grabbing her backpack with practiced efficiency. They'd drilled this dozens of times since the traffic stop. Through her thermal scope, Sarah counted at least 20 figures surrounding the house. SWAT teams in full gear, taking up breach positions. More units blocked both ends of the street. "Back door, just like we practiced," Sarah murmured. "Stay low, stay quiet." Officer Rourke sat in his patrol car at the perimeter, watching the massive operation unfold. The scale of force seemed extreme for apprehending one woman. Armored vehicles, tactical teams, even helicopter support circling overhead. "All units in position," crackled his radio. "Execute on my mark." Inside, Sarah led Maya through the darkness toward their escape route. She'd prepared for this, disabled the security system's silent alarm, loosened specific floorboards, created blind spots in the exterior coverage. The front door exploded inward with a thunderous crash. Flash bangs detonated in multiple rooms. Armed officers poured in, sweeping with laser-sighted weapons. "Clear!" voices shouted. "Moving to second floor!" But Sarah and Maya were already slipping through a narrow gap between houses, using the neighbors' dense shrubbery as cover. Sarah had mapped every shadow, every concealed path in the area. Rourke watched the raid team systematically tear through Sarah's home. They kicked in doors, smashed windows, upended furniture. The violence of it shocked him. This wasn't law enforcement, it was destruction. "Target's not here," someone shouted over the radio. "Check the basement." More crashes, more splintering wood, more shouts of frustration. Through his windshield, Rourke noticed movement, a shadow passing between houses 2 doors down. He squinted, but said nothing into his radio. His hand hesitated over the transmit button. Sarah guided Maya through the darkness with hand signals she'd taught her. "Stop. Wait. Move now." The teenager followed perfectly, her footsteps silent on the damp grass. They reached the back alley just as searchlights began sweeping the yard. Sarah pulled Maya behind a rusted dumpster seconds before a tactical team rushed past. "Spread out," a commander ordered. "They have to be close." Rourke stepped out of his car, watching the organized chaos unfold. Neighbors emerged onto porches, filming with phones. Children cried behind hastily closed curtains. An elderly woman in a nightgown stood trembling as armed men searched her garden. "This isn't right," he muttered. "What was that, rookie?" Harley appeared beside him, tactical vest strapped over his bandaged leg. "Nothing, sir." Rourke looked away. Sarah and Maya reached their first waypoint, an abandoned garage 3 blocks away. Inside, Sarah retrieved a hidden bag containing new clothes, cash, and burner phones. They changed quickly, while police sirens wailed in the distance. "Where are we going?" Maya whispered, pulling on a dark hoodie. "To see an old friend," Sarah replied. "Someone who knows how to stay off the grid." Across town, Malcolm Rhodes sat at his bank of computer monitors, watching the raid unfold through hacked security cameras. His fingers flew across keyboards, erasing digital traces, planting false trails, keeping his old colleague's escape route clear. The sun was rising as Sarah and Maya approached Malcolm's safe house, a nondescript ranch home surrounded by overgrown vegetation and signal jamming equipment disguised as garden ornaments. "Remember," Sarah told Maya, "Malcolm's paranoid but brilliant. Don't touch anything electronic without asking first." They slipped through his back gate, avoiding the hidden cameras Sarah knew were watching. 3 precise knocks on the kitchen door. Malcolm opened it cautiously, his weathered face breaking into a grim smile. "Took you long enough, Reaper." "Had to take the scenic route," Sarah replied. "Thanks for the backup." "Always." He ushered them inside, checking the street before closing and triple-locking the door. "Welcome to my humble CSEF." Maya stared at the controlled chaos of his command center. Walls of monitors showing surveillance feeds, news channels, police frequencies, and scrolling data. "Your place is—" She searched for the right word. "Secure," Malcolm finished. "Hardened against electronic surveillance, thermal imaging, and any other toys they might throw at us." He typed rapidly, bringing up footage of the raid. "They hit your house hard. Very hard. This isn't just about a traffic stop anymore." Sarah watched the destruction of her home on the screens. "No," she agreed. "They're scared. We need to find out why." At the precinct, Rourke sat at his desk, filling out the raid report with shaking hands. The images wouldn't leave his mind. Terrified families, violated homes, military-grade weapons deployed in a residential neighborhood. All to hunt down a woman whose only crime was defending herself. He looked at his badge, then at the thin blue line flag hanging on the wall. For the first time in his career, he wondered which side of that line he was really on. Malcolm's fingers danced across multiple keyboards, his eyes darting between screens filled with encrypted data. The soft blue glow of the monitors lit up his weathered face as he worked to crack Harley's digital trail. "These files are police-grade encrypted," he muttered, taking a sip of cold coffee. "But they made one mistake. They used the department's standard protocols." Sarah stood behind him, watching strings of code scroll past. "Can you break it?" "Already have." Malcolm pulled up a series of documents, property records, and email chains. "Look at this. Harley's tactical unit has been conducting targeted raids on specific properties for the past 18 months. Maya leaned in, her quick eyes scanning the data. "All in predominantly black neighborhoods?" "Bingo!" Malcolm highlighted several addresses. Every raid resulted in arrests, property seizures, or voluntary evictions. And guess who bought up those properties within weeks? Sarah's jaw tightened. "Developer companies." "Shell corporations," Malcolm corrected, pulling up more records. "All leading back to CityView Development Group. They're turning million-dollar profits by forcing people out and flipping the properties." Maya pulled out her laptop, fingers flying across the keys. "I'm creating folders for each case. We need to organize this so people can understand the pattern." "Smart girl." Malcolm nodded approvingly. Document everything. Screenshots, timestamps, chain of custody. Make it court-proof. Sarah studied a map showing the raid locations. They're systematically clearing out entire blocks, using police power to do the dirty work. And that's not all. Malcolm opened another encrypted file. Harley's unit has been receiving large cash deposits through offshore accounts. Payment for services rendered. Maya's eyes widened as she compiled the evidence. Look at these body cam videos. They're all corrupted at convenient moments, just like what happened to us. Across town, Officer Rourke sat in his car during lunch break, reviewing his own collected evidence. His phone contained secretly recorded conversations, photographs of doctored reports, and notes from other officers who'd witnessed misconduct but stayed quiet. His hands shook slightly as he added another video, Harley bragging about cleaning up the neighborhood while counting a thick envelope of cash. Back at Malcolm's safe house, Maya organized the digital evidence into clear, compelling folders. I'm linking everything to a secure cloud server. Even if they shut us down, the files will stay safe. Good thinking, Malcolm said. But they'll try to discredit it all as fake news or hacked data. That's why we need live witnesses, Sarah added. People speaking their truth in public. Maya pulled up the city's website. There's a city council meeting next week. It's being broadcast live on local TV and streamed online. Malcolm checked the details. Perfect timing. The mayor's pushing a major redevelopment initiative. All the key players will be there, including Harley, Sarah noted. He always provides security at these meetings. Maya created a presentation, combining data with human stories. I'm adding testimonials from families who were forced out. Photos of their homes before and after. The money trail showing who profited. We'll need backup plans, Malcolm warned, setting up redundant systems. They'll try to shut down the stream, cut the power, anything to stop the truth from getting out. Already on it. Maya held up multiple flash drives. I've got copies ready to distribute to every news outlet in the city. Plus, backup live stream links through private servers. Sarah watched her niece work, pride mixing with concern. You understand this is dangerous, right? These people have already shown what they're willing to do. Maya met her aunt's eyes. I understand, but staying quiet is more dangerous. They're destroying our community, Aunt Sarah. Someone has to stand up. Malcolm's security system beeped, showing Officer Rourke's patrol car driving past, for the third time that hour. We've got company, Malcolm announced, switching to external cameras. Wait, Maya said, squinting at the screen. I recognize him. He was at the traffic stop, the quiet one who didn't shoot. Sarah studied the officer's face. He's been investigating too. Look at his body language. He's conflicted, watching, thinking. Could be useful, Malcolm mused. A cop's testimony would add serious weight. Maya pulled up Rourke's personnel file. Clean record, no excessive force complaints. New to the force. Not corrupted yet, Sarah said softly. Maybe still remembers why he became a cop. They spent hours refining their plan. Malcolm secured the technical details, backup power, multiple broadcast channels, untraceable internet connections. Maya polished the presentation, making complex data clear and compelling. Sarah worked on escape routes and contingency plans. The council meeting is at 7 p.m. next Thursday, Maya confirmed, marking it on their secure calendar. Public comment section starts after the mayor's development presentation. Perfect, Malcolm said. They'll be trapped in their own spotlight. Sarah checked her watch. 1 week to prepare, to get everything and everyone in position. Maya saved their final files, her face set with determination. 1 week to get ready to tell the truth. Officer Kevin Rourke parked his patrol car in the empty church lot, far from street lights. His hands gripped the steering wheel as he watched Maya approach through the shadows. She moved cautiously, phone ready to record. "I came alone," Rourke said quietly as she reached his window. "No wires, no backup." Maya kept her distance. "Why should I trust you?" "Because I can't sleep anymore." Rourke's voice cracked. "Every night I see your aunt's face when Harley pulled that trigger. For no reason. No reason at all. You stood there and did nothing," Maya said, anger edging her words. "I know." Rourke's shoulders slumped. "That's why I'm here now. I've been gathering evidence, recordings, photos, documentation of every illegal raid and cover-up. I want to testify." From the darkness, Sarah emerged silently. Rourke jumped, not having noticed her presence. "Easy," Sarah said, her voice steady. "If you're really here to help, prove it." Rourke pulled out his phone, hands shaking slightly. "I recorded Harley bragging about the payoffs, about targeting specific houses for the developers. He thinks I'm just a rookie who wants to learn the ropes." He played a video. Harley's voice came through clearly. "These people don't deserve these properties anyway. We're doing the city a favor, cleaning things up, and making good money doing it." Maya studied the video carefully. "This is real. High quality, too." "I've got more," Rourke said. "Much more. Body cam footage they thought they deleted, bank records, names of other officers involved." Sarah's expression remained neutral. "Why now? Why risk your career?" "Because this isn't what I signed up for." Rourke met her gaze. "I wanted to help people, protect communities, not terrorize them for profit." Maya looked at her aunt. "We need his testimony. A cop speaking out will make people listen." "It's also dangerous," Sarah warned. "For all of us." "I know the risks," Rourke insisted. "But someone has to stand up. These aren't just files and cases. They're families, homes, lives being destroyed." Inside Malcolm's safe house, they reviewed Rourke's evidence. Malcolm ran authenticity checks while Maya integrated the new material into their presentation. "Everything checks out," Malcolm confirmed. "His recordings are genuine. Metadata intact." Sarah watched Rourke carefully. "Walk me through exactly what happened that day." "The traffic stop." Rourke took a deep breath. "Harley picked your car specifically. Said we needed to send a message to the neighborhood. When you refused to exit without cause, he got angry. He never intended to let it end peacefully." Maya's fingers paused over her keyboard. "You knew it was wrong. We could see it on your face." "I froze," Rourke admitted. "By the time I realized what was happening, shots were fired. Then I watched a woman protect her niece with military precision while my training partner tried to murder her." Sarah's expression softened slightly. "Sometimes standing up late is better than never standing up at all." They spent hours incorporating Rourke's testimony into their plan. Maya created a powerful sequence, combining his videos with their other evidence. Malcolm established secure communication channels for coordination during the council meeting. "I'll speak during public comment," Rourke said. "Present my badge, my evidence, everything. They can't shut me down without looking guilty." "We'll have multiple cameras streaming," Maya added. "If they cut one feed, 3 more will be live." Sarah studied the council chamber blueprints. "You'll need protection. Harley will have his tactical team there." "I've got other officers who will help," Rourke revealed. "Good cops who are tired of the corruption. They'll be in plain clothes watching our backs." Maya finished the final presentation cut. "This is it. All the evidence, all the testimony, all the truth. Ready to go public. Thursday at 7 p.m., Malcolm confirmed. During the mayor's big redevelopment announcement. Maximum exposure. Across town, in a dimly lit bar, one of Harley's informants slipped onto a bar stool. "Boss, we got a problem." The rookies flipped. Harley's face darkened as he listened to the details. His fingers tightened around his glass until his knuckles went white. "The council meeting," he growled. "They're planning to expose everything?" "Yes, sir." The girl's coordinating it all. Some kind of tech wizard. They've got videos, documents, witnesses ready to testify. Harley drained his whiskey. Rourke, I can handle. Internal affairs will destroy him. But that girl, his eyes turned cold. She's the key, the one pushing it all forward. What do you want us to do? Harley stood, dropping cash on the bar. Find her, before Thursday. Make sure she never makes it to that meeting. He walked out into the night, rage building with each step. Everything he'd built, all the power and profit, threatened by a teenage girl with a laptop. That had to end. The protest swelled outside City Hall, voices rising against police brutality and corruption. Maya stood near the steps, coordinating live-stream feeds with other young activists. Her fingers flew across her phone screen, making sure every angle was covered. "Testing feed 3, she said into her earpiece. "Everyone in position?" Rourke watched from across the plaza, dressed in civilian clothes. He scanned the crowd, noting several of Harley's tactical unit members mixing in, wearing plain black hoodies and baseball caps. Something felt wrong. The first flashbang exploded near the back of the crowd. Screams erupted as smoke filled the air. Maya's heart raced as she tried to maintain visual contact with her team. "Stay calm!" protest leaders shouted through megaphones. "Don't run! Link arms!" More explosions followed. Through the chaos, Rourke spotted Harley's men moving with purpose, not random like the panicking crowd. They were creating a pattern, hurting people. "Maya!" he shouted, pushing through the mass of bodies. "Maya, get out of there!" She heard him too late. Two men in hoodies grabbed her arms, swift and practiced. Her phone clattered to the ground as they dragged her toward a waiting van. "Help!" Maya screamed, kicking and thrashing. "Someone help!" Rourke sprinted forward, badge out. "Police! Let her go!" 3 officers he recognized from Harley's unit stepped in his path. One grabbed his arm while another twisted the badge from his hand. "Stand down, rookie," the biggest one growled. "This isn't your business." "She's a minor." Rourke struggled against their grip. "This is kidnapping." "It's crowd control," the officer sneered. "And you're interfering with police business." Maya's screams were muffled as they forced her into the van's dark interior. Rourke watched helplessly as the vehicle pulled away, its windows tinted black. The smoke began to clear. Protesters regrouped, helping the injured. News cameras captured the aftermath, but conveniently missed Maya's abduction. Rourke's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Smart cops know when to shut up. Across town, Sarah's burner phone lit up with a video message. Her hands trembled as she pressed play. Maya sat in a concrete room, zip-tied to a metal chair. Her face was tear-streaked, but defiant. Harley's voice came from off-camera. "Your niece is brave. I'll give her that." The camera panned to show Maya's laptop and phones laid out on a table. Smart, too. But not smart enough. Sarah's jaw clenched as Harley stepped into frame, resting his hand on Maya's shoulder. Maya flinched, but held her glare. "Here's how this works," Harley continued. "You come to the old Riverside warehouse, alone. No weapons, no backup, no clever plans. You've got 1 hour. The camera zoomed in on Maya's face. If you call for help, she dies. If you bring anyone, she dies. If you're not here in 60 minutes... "Don't do it, Aunt Sarah," Maya shouted. "He'll kill us both." The video cut off. A text followed with coordinates. Sarah's military training kicked in, analyzing options, calculating risks. But this wasn't a battlefield. This was Maya, her only family, her reason for living peacefully all these years. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Harley. "Tick-tock, Reaper. Your move." In the warehouse, Maya tested her restraints while Harley paced, checking his watch. 2 of his men stood guard by the door, hands resting on their weapons. "She'll come," Harley said, more to himself than anyone else. The great Delta Force commander, brought down by a teenage girl. "You're wrong about her," Maya said quietly. "She's not what you think." Harley laughed. "I know exactly what she is. A threat. A loose end. And after tonight, a memory." "No," Maya's voice was steady despite her fear. "She's hope. She's justice. And you're about to find out why they called her Reaper." "Shut up," Harley backhanded her across the face. Maya's head snapped to the side, but she didn't cry out. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the city. Thunder rolled as Sarah stood in her bedroom, staring at her old footlocker. She hadn't opened it in 10 years. Her phone buzzed one final time. "Time's running out. Come alone, or she dies." Sarah closed her eyes, remembering Maya as a baby, holding her sister's hand in the hospital, remembering her promise to protect this child, no matter what. "I'm sorry, little one," she whispered. "I tried to leave the violence behind, but they brought it to our door." She unlocked the footlocker. Sarah knelt before the open footlocker in her bedroom, her hands trembling as they brushed over the familiar equipment inside. The smell of gun oil and canvas brought back memories she'd tried so hard to bury. Her tactical vest, still perfectly maintained despite a decade of disuse, seemed to accuse her with its presence. "I led raids just like that one," she whispered to the empty room. "Kicked down doors in the dead of night. Never questioned who was on the other side." The weight of her past pressed down on her shoulders. How many families had she torn apart in the name of mission objectives? How many children had she terrified, thinking she was serving a greater good? Now Maya was suffering because Sarah had tried to hide from who she was, what she could do. She should have been more prepared, should have taught Maya better survival skills, should have— A gentle knock interrupted her spiral of guilt. "Sister Sarah?" Reverend Wicks's deep voice carried through the door. "May I come in?" "It's open," she replied, not moving from her position on the floor. The Reverend entered quietly, his usual commanding presence softened by concern. He took in the scene, the open footlocker, Sarah's haunted expression, the military gear laid out with mechanical precision. "I failed her," Sarah said, her voice rough. "Everything I did to keep her safe, to give her a normal life, I just made her vulnerable." Reverend Wicks settled into the chair by her bed, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "You protected her the only way you knew how. With love. Love isn't enough against men like Harley." Sarah picked up a tactical glove, running her thumb over the reinforced knuckles. "I should have stayed sharp. Stayed ready." "Perhaps," the Reverend agreed, surprising her. "But not just for Maya. For all of them." Sarah looked up, questioning. How many other families in this neighborhood live in fear of that next routine traffic stop? He gestured toward the window, where police sirens wailed in the distance. How many mothers lie awake at night, wondering if their children will come home? The rot goes deep, Sister Sarah. Deeper than one corrupt cop. "I can't fix the whole system," Sarah protested. "I'm just trying to save my niece." "You have a gift," Reverend Wicks said firmly. "Skills that could protect more than just Maya. The question is, will you keep hiding from who you are? Or will you use those skills to serve justice?" Sarah stood slowly, her military bearing returning like a second skin. She lifted her tactical vest from the footlocker, its familiar weight settling across her shoulders like destiny. "I swore an oath once," she said, checking the ceramic plates. "To defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic." "Amen," the Reverend nodded. "Some oaths don't expire." Sarah moved with increasing purpose, muscle memory taking over as she geared up. Black tactical pants, combat boots, laced tight and double-knotted, knee and elbow pads, utility belt with specialized pouches. Each piece of equipment carried memories. midnight insertions into hostile territory, precision strikes against impossible odds, protecting the innocent from those who would harm them. She had been good at it. The best. "They called me Reaper," she told Reverend Wicks as she checked her weapons. "Not because I killed, because I decided who deserved judgment." The Reverend watched her transformation with solemn understanding. "And what judgment does Officer Harley deserve?" Sarah loaded a magazine into her sidearm with a decisive click. "That depends on him. I'm giving him one chance to surrender Maya unharmed. And if he refuses?" She secured her backup weapon in an ankle holster. "Then he learns why they feared the name Reaper." Reverend Wicks stood, placing a heavy hand on her shoulder. "Do what must be done, sister. But remember, this isn't just about vengeance. It's about justice, real justice, not just for Maya, but for every victim of their corruption." Sarah nodded, securing her radio earpiece. "I understand. This ends tonight. Not just Harley, but the whole corrupt system he represents." She faced the mirror, barely recognizing herself. Gone was the peaceful gardener, the quiet aunt. In her place stood a warrior, honed by years of combat and tempered by righteous purpose. "I'll need evidence," she said, checking her tactical watch. "Everything they've done, everyone they've hurt. Can you help get the word out?" "Leave it to me," Reverend Wicks promised. "When the truth comes to light, the whole city will see them for what they are." Sarah pulled on her gloves, flexing her fingers until the leather creaked. Each weapon found its place, each tool secured exactly where muscle memory would find it. She moved like liquid shadow, every motion efficient and deadly. "Maya first," she said, her voice carrying the quiet authority that had once commanded elite soldiers. "Then we burn their whole corrupt house down." The storm outside grew stronger, lightning flashing across her determined face. In the distance, thunder rolled like artillery fire. Sarah, Reaper. Vance was going to war one last time. Not for country or flag, but for justice long denied. Sarah moved like a ghost through the abandoned warehouse district, her boots making no sound on the wet pavement. Rain had turned the night into a maze of shadows and reflections, perfect conditions for someone trained in stealth operations. Her radio crackled softly. "Security cameras on the east side are looped," Rourke whispered. "You've got about 20 minutes before the next shift change." "Copy that," she breathed, barely moving her lips. The young officer had proved his worth, feeding her intel from inside the corrupt system. His help might cost him his badge, but he'd chosen his side. Sarah pressed herself against a brick wall, letting her dark clothing blend with the shadows. 2 guards passed by, their boots splashing through puddles. They were sloppy, talking loudly, weapons held carelessly. Not professionals, just Harley's thugs with badges. She waited until they rounded the corner, then moved. The lock on the side door gave way to her picks in seconds. Inside, the warehouse smelled of rust and mildew. Metal catwalks crisscrossed overhead, and old machinery cast strange shadows in the dim emergency lighting. 3 hostels on the ground floor, Rourke updated. 2 more upstairs. Harley's keeping Maya in the old foreman's office. Sarah unholstered her tranquilizer gun. No killing, not unless absolutely necessary. The first guard never saw her coming. She caught him from behind, one hand over his mouth while the dart found his neck. She lowered his unconscious body silently to the floor. The second guard was facing away, checking his phone. Amateur. The dart took him in the shoulder, and he slumped against a support beam without a sound. "Camera B7 is clear," Rourke confirmed. "But hurry. Something's got them nervous." Sarah climbed the metal stairs, her movements fluid and precise. Years of training took over, checking corners, maintaining cover, reading shadows for signs of movement. The third guard posed no challenge, dropping without raising the alarm. A voice echoed from above. "Johnson? You see anything down there?" Sarah pressed herself flat against the wall, controlling her breathing. Footsteps approached the railing. She waited, muscles coiled like springs. The guard leaned over, squinting into the darkness. "Johnson!" Sarah's hand shot up, grabbing his vest. Before he could shout, she pulled him over the railing. They fell together, but she twisted mid-air, ensuring he took the impact. His breath whooshed out, and a quick strike to the temple put him down. "Last guard's getting suspicious," Rourke warned. "He's heading your way." Sarah melted into the shadows beneath the stairs. The final guard descended cautiously, weapon drawn. He was better trained than the others, checking corners, moving tactically. But Sarah had trained with the best. As he passed her position, she struck. Her arm locked around his throat in a perfect blood choke. He tried to fight back, but she rode his struggles until unconsciousness took him. "Guards neutralized," she whispered into her radio. "Status on Harley?" "Still in the office with Maya. He's—" Rourke hesitated. "He's talking to someone on the phone. Sounds nervous." Sarah climbed back to the second level, moving faster now. The foreman's office stood at the far end of the catwalk, its windows grimy but lit from within. She could make out two figures, one small and seated, the other pacing. Through the glass, she finally saw Maya. Her niece sat handcuffed to a chair, a bruise darkening her cheek, but her eyes were clear and defiant, tracking Harley's movements with cold calculation. Sarah felt a surge of pride. Maya wasn't broken. Harley stalked back and forth, gesturing with his service weapon as he spoke into his phone. "No, you listen. This got too hot. I want extraction now. I don't care about the operation. She's going to—" He spun toward the window, and Sarah ducked below the sill. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with controlled rage. The bruise on Maya's face. The way Harley waved his gun around. Every instinct screamed to burst in and end him. But Delta training ran deeper than instinct. She took slow breaths, calming her pulse. Emotion was the enemy of precision. She needed to be cold, calculated, like the Reaper they'd named her after. "Sarah," Rourke's voice was urgent in her ear. "Multiple vehicles approaching. Looks like Harley's backup is coming." She checked her watch. The guard shift would change soon. Her window was closing. Through the glass, she could hear Harley's rising panic. "Just get here! She's not like the others. She's military or something. Professional. If she finds us—" "Too late," Sarah whispered, though he couldn't hear her. She positioned herself beside the office door, ready to breach. Maya was alive. Harley was unstable. The endgame was about to begin. She keyed her radio one last time. "Rourke, if this goes bad, make sure the truth gets out. All of it." "It won't go bad," he replied firmly. "You've got this, Commander." Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Time to show Officer Harley why they called her Reaper. Sarah breached the warehouse with calculated precision. The lock surrendered silently to her handmade picks, tools crafted from memory of 100 covert entries. The heavy metal door opened without a whisper, testament to years of practice making even the clumsiest hardware bend to her will. Inside, darkness cloaked the corridors like a shroud. Sarah's eyes, already adjusted to the night, picked out shapes in the gloom. Stacked crates, abandoned machinery, the ghostly outlines of support pillars. Her boots, specially modified with sound-dampening soles, made no noise on the concrete floor. The first guard never saw her coming. He stood lazily against a wall, checking his phone. Sarah closed the distance in 3 silent steps. Her hand clamped over his mouth, while her other arm snaked around his throat, in a blood choke. He tried to struggle, but she rode his descent to unconsciousness like a dance partner, lowering him gently to avoid any noise. Two more guards patrolled ahead, their flashlight beams cutting lazy arcs through the darkness. Sarah spotted a wooden broom handle propped against some crates. In one fluid motion, she grabbed it, testing its weight and balance. Perfect. The guards separated slightly. Amateur mistake. Sarah moved like liquid shadow, coming up behind the first one. The broom handle whipped across the back of his knees. As he buckled, she drove the makeshift weapon up into his solar plexus, then across his temple. He dropped without a sound. His partner turned at the muffled impact, but Sarah was already moving. She threw the broom handle like a spear, forcing him to dodge. That split second was all she needed. Her belt, already loosened, came free in her hands. She closed the distance as he fumbled for his weapon, wrapping the leather strap around his wrist and using his own momentum to slam him face first into a metal support beam. One sharp strike to the base of his skull, and he joined his colleagues in unconsciousness. Sarah retrieved her belt, threading it back through her loops with practiced efficiency. 3 down. Moving deeper into the warehouse, she heard voices ahead. Multiple hostiles in what sounded like a break room. She pressed her ear to the door, counting voices. 3 men, talking casually about sports scores. Their guard was down. She found a length of steel rebar nearby, about 2 feet long. It would do. Sarah took a deep breath, centered herself, then burst through the door. The first man barely had time to stand before the rebar caught him across the collarbone. She felt rather than heard the crack. He screamed, but it cut short as she drove her knee into his sternum, sending him crashing through a cheap folding table. The second man was bigger, ex-military by his stance. He came at her with trained strikes, but Sarah was Delta Force. She operated at a different level. She deflected his first punch with the rebar, then dropped it to grab his extended arm. Using his momentum, she threw him into the wall-mounted shelving unit. Metal brackets tore free from concrete as he crashed through, buried under an avalanche of stored supplies. The third man had managed to draw a knife. He slashed at her with wild, desperate strikes. Sarah's lip curled. Poor technique, all aggression and no control. She caught his knife arm mid-swing, twisting it into a joint lock. He howled as tendons strained. Before he could counter, she drove him backward into a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall. The impact knocked it loose. Sarah caught it one-handed and brought it down hard across his temple. He dropped, twitching. Blood trickled from a cut on her cheek, where one lucky strike had connected. She wiped it away, breathing steadily. The fight had lasted less than 30 seconds. A quick scan of the room revealed a security monitor. On the grainy screen, she saw Maya tied to a chair inside what looked like a cage, some kind of storage area converted into a makeshift cell. 2 floors up, west side of the building. Sarah moved through the warehouse like a ghost, neutralizing 2 more guards with swift, economical violence. Each takedown was textbook perfect. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Just the brutal poetry of close combat mastered through decades of training. Finally, she reached the storage area. Maya sat inside a heavy metal cage, hands bound behind her. Despite the bruise on her face, her eyes lit up with fierce pride when she saw Sarah. The lock was industrial grade, but Sarah had it open in seconds. Just as she stepped toward Maya, the overhead lights cut out with a sharp electrical snap. Darkness flooded the room, broken only by dim emergency lighting that cast everything in blood-red shadows. Then, from behind her, came the sound of slow, deliberate applause. "I have to admit, I'm impressed," Harley's voice echoed as he stepped into view, his service weapon trained steadily on Sarah's chest. "That was quite a show of force, Commander." "But you brought fists to a gunfight." Sarah turned to face him, positioning herself between the weapon and Maya. Her voice was cold steel. "I brought justice." Sarah's fingers worked the lock methodically, each movement precise and controlled. The warehouse door clicked open without a sound. Inside, darkness cloaked the corridors, broken only by strips of moonlight filtering through high windows. The air smelled of concrete dust and old metal. She moved like water through shadow, her boots silent on the grimy floor. Years of Delta Force training had taught her patience, the slow breath, the measured step, the art of becoming invisible. Up ahead, voices echoed off bare walls. "Check the perimeter again," a gruff voice ordered. "She's out there somewhere." Sarah pressed herself against a wall as footsteps approached. A guard rounded the corner, tactical vest gleaming dully in the low light. Before he could react, she struck, one hand clamping his mouth while the other found the pressure point at his neck. He struggled briefly, then went limp. She lowered him silently to the floor. A broken broom handle lay discarded nearby. Sarah picked it up, testing its weight. Voices drifted from an adjacent hallway. 2 more guards. She waited until they passed, then moved. The broom handle whistled through the air, catching the first guard behind the knee. As he buckled, she drove her elbow into his partner's solar plexus. Both men wheezed, trying to cry out. Sarah didn't give them the chance. Quick strikes to vulnerable points. Throat, temple, kidney. And they crumpled. More footsteps. Sarah unclipped her belt, wrapping one end around her fist. A guard appeared, radio raised to call in. The belt whipped out, catching his wrist. She yanked him forward, off balance, into her waiting knee. His radio clattered away as she used the belt to lock his arm behind his back. A sharp twist, and he was face down, unconscious. The corridor opened into a storage area. Metal shelving created a maze of shadows. Sarah heard movement, multiple hostiles. She picked up a length of pipe from a broken shelf, hefting it carefully. 3 figures emerged from different aisles, wearing tactical gear and carrying batons. "There she is!" one shouted. They rushed her together, coordinated and trained. But Sarah had trained with the best. She met the first attacker with a devastating combination, pipe to knee, elbow to jaw, then using his momentum to throw him into his partner. Both men crashed into a shelf, sending boxes tumbling. The third man was better, ex-military by his stance. He swung his baton in tight arcs, forcing Sarah back. She parried with the pipe, metal ringing on metal. He pressed forward, confident in his size advantage. Sarah let him come. When he committed to a powerful strike, she dropped the pipe and stepped inside his guard. Her hands found his wrist and elbow. She twisted, using a nearby table as leverage. The crack of breaking bone echoed through the room. He screamed. The other 2 were up again. Sarah grabbed a fallen shelf and swung it like a battering ram, catching one man in the chest. He flew backward, crashing through a wall-mounted storage unit in a shower of splinters and old files. The last man hesitated, then charged with a roar. Sarah spotted a fire extinguisher on the wall. She rolled under his wild swing, came up with the extinguisher, and unleashed a cloud of white powder into his face. As he staggered, blind and choking, she brought the metal canister down on his head. He dropped. Blood trickled from a cut above her eye where someone's baton had connected. Her knuckles were raw, and her ribs ached. But Sarah barely noticed. The mission consumed her. Find Maya. End this. A locked metal cage occupied the next room. Inside, Maya sat handcuffed to a chair, her face bruised but her eyes fierce. When she saw Sarah, hope blazed across her features. "Aunt Sarah!" Sarah worked quickly on the cage's lock, her picks finding the tumblers. The door swung open with a creak. But before she could reach Maya, the overhead lights cut out. Darkness swallowed them. Slow, deliberate clapping echoed through the space. A spotlight snapped on, illuminating Officer Harley as he stepped from the shadows. His service weapon gleamed in his hand, aimed steadily at Sarah's chest. "You brought fists to a gunfight, Commander," he said, smirking. Sarah straightened, blood dripping from her split knuckles. Her voice was steel. "I brought justice." The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Sarah's muscles coiled. Ready. Harley's finger tightened on the trigger. The first shot cracked through the warehouse. Sarah was already moving, rolling behind a stack of wooden crates as bullets splintered wood where she'd stood seconds before. The acrid smell of gunpowder filled the air. "You can't hide forever," Harley taunted, advancing slowly. "I've got the gun, remember?" Sarah's eyes darted around the space, taking in angles and cover points. A wrench lay discarded near her boot. She grabbed it, calculating trajectory. When Harley stepped past a support beam, she hurled the wrench hard to her left. It crashed into metal shelving with a thunderous clang. Harley spun toward the noise, exactly as she'd planned. Sarah burst from cover, closing the distance in 3 swift strides. Her hand clamped around his gun wrist, twisting sharply. The weapon clattered to the floor as Harley howled in pain. He recovered quickly, throwing a wild haymaker at her head. Sarah slipped the punch and countered with a precise strike to his solar plexus. But Harley fought dirty. As she stepped in, his knee drove up toward her groin. Sarah barely blocked in time. "That all you got?" he snarled, pulling something from his belt. A black stun baton that crackled with electricity. The weapon hummed through the air inches from Sarah's face. She felt the static raise the hair on her neck as she weaved backward. Harley pressed forward, swinging the baton in vicious arcs. When Sarah tried to close distance, he gouged at her eyes with his free hand. She caught his gouging hand and applied crushing pressure to the nerve cluster in his wrist. Harley grunted, but managed to slam the stun baton into her ribs. Electricity jolted through her body. Sarah's muscles spasmed, but she didn't let go. Instead, she used the pain to fuel her next move. They crashed into a narrow hallway, trading brutal strikes in the confined space. Sarah read the architecture instantly. Smooth walls, perfect for what she needed. When Harley lunged with the baton, she planted one foot on the wall, using it to launch herself into a devastating roundhouse kick. Her boot connected with his jaw with a satisfying crack. Harley staggered, spitting blood. The fight spilled into the main warehouse bay. Sarah's trained eye spotted the weakness in Harley's stance. He was favoring his left leg slightly. She dropped low, sweeping his vulnerable knee with clinical precision. Cartilage popped. Harley roared in agony as the joint gave way. But even injured, he was dangerous. Near the control room, Harley caught Sarah with a lucky strike that sent her crashing into a bank of metal pipes. Pain exploded across her back. He pressed his advantage, wrapping massive hands around her throat. "Not so tough now, are you?" he sneered, squeezing. Sarah's vision started to dim. Her fingers scrabbled against the wall behind her, finding a loose electrical cord. In one fluid motion, she ripped it free and looped it around Harley's neck. She pulled tight, using the cord as a garrote. Harley's grip loosened as he clawed at the cord, cutting off his air. Sarah maintained steady pressure, watching his face turn red, then purple. She could end him right here. After everything he'd done, everything he represented. But that wasn't justice. That was revenge. Just before consciousness left him, she released the pressure. Harley collapsed in a heap, wheezing desperately. Sarah grabbed his collar and dragged his semi-conscious body back to the central room where Maya waited. Her niece had already freed herself from the restraints and was working on something with her phone. "You okay?" Sarah asked, checking Maya's bruised face. "Better than him," Maya replied with grim satisfaction. She held up Sarah's phone, showing the active body cam feed she'd helped install before the raid. "We're live in 3, 2, 1. Harley stirred, blinking groggily. A smirk crossed his battered face. "Doesn't matter what you do to me. System protects its own. You got nothing." "Look again," Sarah said, pointing to the small red light blinking on her collar. "You're live to every major news outlet and social media platform in the city. So let's talk about what you've really been doing in this neighborhood." The blood drained from Harley's face as he finally noticed the recording light. His eyes darted around like a trapped animal's. Sarah leaned in close, her voice steel and ice. "Say it all. Every family you buried, every bribe you took, every raid you faked. The world is watching." 2 weeks after Harley's confession, the basement of Reverend Wicks's church buzzed with energy. Folding chairs filled every available space, packed with neighbors eager to learn and share. Malcolm Rhodes stood at a makeshift podium, his normally reserved demeanor animated as he taught basic cybersecurity. "Your phone is both a weapon and a shield," he explained, pointing to the projection behind him. "Today we're learning how to protect ourselves digitally while documenting truth." Maya sat in the front row, adding her own insights about social media encryption and secure file sharing. She'd become the neighborhood's go-to tech expert, turning her experience into a force for change. The bruises on her face had faded, but her determination had only grown stronger. Sarah watched from the back, content to observe. She'd turned down 3 private security job offers and a formal reinstatement request from a reformed police department. Her garden needed tending, and her community needed her more. "The system only works when we make it work for us," Malcolm continued, showing slides of successful civilian oversight programs. "Knowledge is power, but only if we share it." Reverend Wicks moved through the crowd, offering coffee and encouragement. He'd transformed the church into a community center, hosting everything from legal aid clinics to self-defense classes. The basement walls, once bare, now displayed photos of successful protests and community victories. Kevin Rourke slipped in through the side door, still looking slightly uncomfortable in civilian clothes. After testifying against Harley and his superiors, he'd been fired. But the neighborhood had embraced him. Now he taught workshops on citizen rights during police encounters, turning his insider knowledge into a shield for the community. "Hey," he said quietly, taking a seat next to Sarah. "Still feels strange being on this side?" "Good strange or bad strange?" Sarah asked, studying his face. "Good. Really good." Rourke watched as Maya helped an elderly woman secure her phone's privacy settings. "I'm finally doing what I signed up for. Protecting people." The workshop transitioned into small group discussions. The room filled with the low buzz of conversation as neighbors shared stories and strategies. Sarah noticed how people who'd once hurried past each other now leaned in close, planning and supporting one another. Malcolm joined them in the back, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We've got 4 more neighborhoods asking for similar programs," he said. "Word's spreading." "Let it spread," Sarah replied. "The more people know, the harder it is to hide the truth." Through the basement windows, they could see people gathering in the church parking lot for the afternoon rally. Hand-painted signs leaned against cars. "Our streets, our stories," and "Truth can't be buried" among them. Maya bounded over, her laptop tucked under one arm. "The live stream setup is ready," she announced. "We're going to broadcast the whole rally. Show everyone what real community power looks like." Sarah squeezed her niece's shoulder, proud of how Maya had transformed her trauma into purpose. The teenager had started a youth media collective, teaching other kids how to document and share their reality safely and effectively. "Reverend," Sarah called as Wicks passed by, "how many people are we expecting today?" "More than last time," he smiled. "And not just our neighborhood. People are coming from all over the city. They want to learn how we did it." "How we're doing it," Sarah corrected gently. "This isn't finished." Outside, the crowd was growing. Families set up folding chairs and shared homemade lunches. Children played between the groups of adults, discussing neighborhood watches and mutual aid networks. The atmosphere was determined but peaceful, exactly what Sarah had fought for. Rourke helped set up the sound system, showing others how to position cameras to capture police behavior at public events. His presence was a powerful symbol of change, proof that conscience could overcome conditioning. "You know," Malcolm said quietly to Sarah, "this is a different kind of victory than what we used to fight for. Slower, deeper." Sarah nodded, watching her community transform fear into strength. Every workshop, every rally, every shared meal was another brick in the foundation they were building. Not just resistance, but renaissance. Maya's voice came through the speakers, testing the sound system. "Check 1, 2. Can everyone hear me?" The crowd responded with cheers and raised fists. The autumn sun warmed Sarah's face as she stepped outside. Her garden would need attention soon. The tomatoes were almost ready for harvest. But for now, she watched her neighborhood write its own story, one truth at a time. Reverend Wicks took the microphone, his deep voice carrying across the parking lot. "We gather today, not just to remember what happened, but to celebrate what's happening. Look around you. This is what justice looks like. This is what community looks like." The crowd murmured in agreement. Sarah saw faces she'd known for years now, shining with new purpose. The same streets that had once felt like a trap now hummed with possibility. Spring sunlight warmed Sarah's hands as she worked fresh soil around her tomato plants. The garden had doubled in size since last fall, stretching across her backyard in neat, abundant rows. New vegetables and herbs filled raised beds she'd built herself. Kale, peppers, basil, and squash reaching toward the sky. Maya's voice drifted over the fence from the community center next door, where she was leading her weekly youth safety meeting. "Remember, your phone is your first line of defense," she instructed. "But your community is your strongest shield." Sarah smiled, listening to her niece's confident tone. The scared teenager recording a traffic stop had transformed into a powerful young leader. Maya now ran workshops teaching other kids about their rights, safe protest tactics, and how to document police interactions. Her program had spread to 3 other neighborhoods. Pulling a stubborn weed, Sarah's hands trembled slightly, an old tell from her military days that surfaced when memories pressed too close. The sound of Maya teaching brought echoes of past violence, the crack of gunfire, screams in foreign languages, the weight of decisions that could never be undone. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in the present moment. The soil was cool between her fingers. Birds called from nearby trees. Car horns honked in familiar patterns. "You good, Aunt Sarah?" Maya had appeared at the fence, concern in her eyes. She noticed everything these days. "Just gardening ghosts," Sarah replied, managing a smile. "How's class going?" "Great. We're practicing de-escalation techniques today. Want to help demonstrate?" Sarah shook her head. "You've got this covered. Besides, these tomatoes won't plant themselves." Maya nodded, understanding. She knew her aunt still struggled with public situations, preferring to support from the background. The trauma of their confrontation with Harley had left marks on them both, but they'd learned to respect each other's healing process. "Ms. Sarah," a young voice called from the sidewalk. It was Diane, one of Maya's students, carrying a bag of fresh vegetables. "Mom sent these from our garden. Said we learned from the best." Sarah waved him over, touched by the gesture. When she'd first started teaching neighbors about growing food, only a few had shown interest. Now, victory gardens dotted the neighborhood, small acts of independence sprouting in every yard. "Tell your mom thanks," Sarah said, accepting the bag. "Those look like strong beans. You're taking good care of them." "Yes, ma'am," Dion beamed. "Maya's showing us how to share extra food through the community app. Like a virtual farmer's market." Sarah watched him hurry back to the youth meeting, pride warming her chest. This was what healing looked like. Not just surviving trauma, but growing something new from it. The neighborhood had transformed its pain into purpose, its fear into fellowship. She returned to her planting, enjoying the simple rhythm of tucking seedlings into earth. The garden had become her therapy, each harvest a reminder that patience and care could yield beautiful results. Some days were harder than others. Certain sounds, helicopter blades, car backfire, raised voices, could still trigger her combat instincts. But the garden helped steady her, its cycles of growth and renewal teaching lessons about resilience. Maya's class wrapped up, and Sarah heard the familiar sounds of teenagers gathering their things, sharing jokes and making plans. Their energy was different now, more focused, more aware, but still youthful. They'd learned to balance vigilance with joy, a skill Sarah was still mastering herself. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. Sarah almost ignored it, but something made her answer. "Is this Commander Vance?" A woman's voice, tense but controlled. "We need your help in Detroit. Something's happening here, like what you faced, but worse." Sarah stood slowly, surveying her garden. The tomatoes would need support stakes soon. The peppers were starting to flower. Maya's voice carried across the yard as she said goodbye to her students. "Why me?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "Because you didn't just fight back. You helped your community rebuild. We need that knowledge, that hope." Sarah looked at the sky, cloudless and bright. A year ago, she'd wanted nothing more than to disappear into her peaceful garden. Now she understood that peace wasn't just about being left alone. It was about helping others find their strength. A smile crossed her face, small but certain. The garden would wait. There was more growing to do. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.